Russia didn't expect this, not because Bulgaria is powerful in the conventional sense, but because it's becoming strategically inconvenient in a theater. Russia once assumed it could dominate the Black Sea. For years, Moscow treated its naval dominance in the Black Sea as a near given. Its Black Sea fleet outpaced neighbors, its bases in Crimea were unchallenged. And littoral states, the countries lining the sea, were assumed to be too divided, too economically entangled, or too inconsistent to present a real counterbalance. But that assumption is cracking. Today, Bulgaria, a NATO and EU member state on the western edge of the Black Sea, is quietly recalibrating its posture. Sofia isn't shouting about confrontation. It isn't firing the first shot in a new conflict. It is quietly closing avenues of dominance that Russia once took for granted. This shift reflects a broader reality. The Black Sea has become a geopolitical pressure point where strategic interests, military postures, economic ties, and historical legacies collide. Russia still sees the region as core to its influence in Eastern Europe, a zone that links its southern flank and its air and naval forces directly with the Mediterranean and beyond. Experts note that for decades, European and NATO policymakers underestimated Russia's resolve to maintain and even expand control in the Black Sea basin, interpreting Moscow's actions through outdated Cold War assumptions. But Russia's assumptions are now being challenged from multiple directions. And Bulgaria, once a quiet partner on the periphery of European defense, is emerging as part of the shift. Bulgaria's transformation is not dramatic. It is procedural, measured, and rooted in a sober assessment of the changing security environment. For decades, Sofia's approach to Russia was informed as much by culture and energy ties as by strategic calculation. Russian gas pipelines fed Bulgaria, Russian investments were present in key sectors, and political factions in Sofia often advocated a balanced foreign policy that tried to accommodate Moscow while maintaining NATO and EU commitments. That balance is shifting. The catalyst was Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The war exposed vulnerabilities not just in KU's defenses, but in Europe's collective sense of security. For Bulgaria, the war was a strategic wake-up call. The 2025 National Defense Strategy, Sofia's guiding framework for military planning, explicitly identifies Russia as a principal threat to national and regional security. This represents a stark departure from the softer language of past decades, and it aligns Bulgaria with its Eastern European neighbors who now view Moscow as a direct danger to peace and stability. But the threat assessment isn't just rhetorical. It now reflects in how Bulgaria thinks about the Black Sea itself, not just as an economic resource, but as a theater of strategic competition. Historically, Bulgaria saw the Black Sea as critical to tourism, trade, and commerce. The region accounts for a significant portion of coastal GDP, especially during summer seasons, and its ports are vital for both imports and exports. But economic value alone can't guarantee security. Russia's posture in the Black Sea since 2014, and especially since 2022, has reinforced why Bulgaria must reconsider its role. Russian naval power operates not just to project force, but to influence political equilibria and to limit the freedom of action of other states in the region. Moscow's modernization and militarization of bases in Crimea, its deployment of advanced reconnaissance and strike systems, and periodic naval activities near Bulgarian waters have underscored that the Kremlin still sees the Black Sea as a strategic advantage. Bulgaria's own experience illustrates this shift. In 2023, Russia conducted operations in and near Bulgaria's exclusive economic zone that Sofia saw as a de facto blockade of energy exploration activities. While Moscow framed these as exercises, Bulgarian officials viewed them as provocations and a signal that Russia would use military presence as leverage to influence decisions in the region. Combine that with broader regional dynamics, Turkey's pivotal role under the Montreux Convention, Romania's push for Allied naval presence, and Ukraine's fight for Black Sea access, and Sofia can no longer afford a distant or purely economic interpretation of regional security. This turning point has nudged Bulgaria to pursue deeper cooperation with NATO allies and neighbors. Sofia and Bucharest have signed agreements aimed at integrating their military efforts more closely, including initiatives like a joint regional special operations command for the Black C. Intended to coordinate activities such as securing merchant shipping and maritime inspections. These structures aren't offensive in nature. They are practical mechanisms to reinforce Allied presence and preparedness in a contested sea on the military side. Bulgaria is investing in capabilities that reflect its evolving security priorities. The Bulgarian Navy, long modest due to budget constraints and a historically limited focus on coastal defense, is slowly diversifying and strengthening its capacity. While the fleet is not designed to rival Russia's Black Sea Fleet, modernization efforts aim to improve coastal patrols, mine countermeasures, and interoperability with allied navies. Sofia's strategic thinking now embraces the idea that even limited enhancements in capabilities can amplify Bulgaria's contribution to collective defense and complicate adversary calculations. At the same time, Sofia is leveraging external partnerships to strengthen its defense industrial base. In late 2025, Bulgaria signed a more than €1 billion deal with German defense firm Rheinmetall to build a domestic gunpowder and ammunition production facility, part of a broader European push to replenish and strengthen defense supply chains in response to the war in Ukraine. This project will significantly expand Bulgaria's capacity to produce modern artillery shells and munitions, reinvigorating an industry that had diminished after the Cold War. These moves are not accidental. They reflect a recognition that strategic depth cannot rely solely on allied protections. Regional states must contribute to deterrence and readiness. Bulgaria's growing relevance in the Black Sea is inseparable from how NATO itself is adapting to a more contested maritime environment. Since 2022, the alliance has quietly shifted from symbolic reassurance to practical coordination along its eastern flank, and the Black Sea is now treated less as a peripheral space and more as a connected operational zone for Bulgaria. This has meant deeper integration rather than headline-grabbing deployments. Joint exercises such as Breeze and Sea Shield, conducted with Romania, Turkey, and other allied participants, have expanded in scope and complexity. These drills focus on realistic scenarios, maritime surveillance, protection of commercial shipping, air-sea coordination, and rapid response to gray zone incidents. The goal is not escalation, but familiarity. Familiarity between command structures, sensor networks, and decision-making processes shortens response times and reduces uncertainty in a crisis. One area where this cooperation has become especially concrete is mine countermeasures. Since the war in Ukraine began, drifting naval mines have periodically appeared across the western Black Sea, posing risks to civilian shipping and coastal infrastructure. In response, Bulgaria, Romania, and Turkey established coordinated mine hunting efforts using their own naval assets. These operations are defensive and humanitarian in nature, but strategically significant. NATO planning increasingly relies on the capabilities, basing access, and situational awareness provided by countries like Bulgaria and Romania, supported by allied air power, intelligence sharing, and rapid reinforcement options from outside the region. This approach emphasizes integration over visibility. Shared radar coverage, maritime domain awareness, intelligence fusion, and coordinated air policing all contribute to deterrence without constant naval shows of force. From Moscow's perspective, this is uncomfortable. It means fewer blind spots and fewer opportunities to act below the threshold of detection. Bulgaria's contribution is also political and diplomatic. Sofia has taken part in EU-NATO coordination efforts aimed at countering hybrid threats in the Black Sea, including disinformation, economic coercion, and cyber pressure. Bulgarian officials have supported EU calls for a more structured Black Sea strategy that treats security, energy routes, digital infrastructure, and maritime governance as interconnected challenges rather than separate policy silos. This alignment reinforces Bulgaria's credibility as a regional stakeholder rather than a passive beneficiary of Allied protection. What matters here is not scale, but position. Bulgaria sits at the intersection of NATO's southeastern flank, the Black Sea's western shore, and critical energy and transport corridors linking Europe to the Caucasus and beyond. As NATO's posture becomes more networked and less dependent on permanent forward deployment, countries that can host, enable, and coordinate Allied activity gain strategic weight. For Russia, this creates a different kind of problem. Bulgaria is not confronting Moscow directly. It is helping to normalize Allied presence, planning, and awareness in a region Russia once treated as strategically permissive. That normalization quietly raises the baseline cost of pressure, coercion, or surprise, and in strategic competition, raising the cost often matters more than making threats. Bulgaria's growing relevance in the Black Sea cannot be understood through military lenses alone. What gives the region its weight is the way security, economics, and infrastructure overlap in a space where disruption can travel far beyond the shoreline. The Black Sea functions as a connective basin. It links European markets to the South Caucasus, Central Asia, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Grain exports, energy transit, digital traffic, and commercial shipping all pass through routes that converge along Bulgaria's coast. When those routes are stable, the region quietly supports European growth. When they are disrupted, the effects are felt across supply chains, energy markets, and political decision-making far from the sea itself. This is why infrastructure has become a strategic issue. Planned undersea fiber optic cables connecting Bulgaria with Georgia, Turkey, and Ukraine are not just commercial projects. The Black Sea is increasingly viewed as an alternative corridor for gas, electricity interconnectors, and future hydrogen routes linking southeastern Europe with the Caspian region and the eastern Mediterranean. Bulgaria's involvement in these projects strengthens its role as a transit state and complicates Russia's traditional use of energy dependence as a political tool. The less concentrated these routes become, the harder it is to apply pressure without collateral damage to multiple partners at once. This economic layer intersects with competition in subtler ways. Western security assessments often note that Russia does not treat the Black Sea purely as a naval arena, but as a space where influence can be applied indirectly. Information campaigns, political messaging, economic pressure, and attempts to shape public debate are all part of a broader effort to keep regional states uncertain, divided, or cautious about deeper alignment with Western institutions. In Bulgaria's case, domestic cohesion becomes strategically relevant. Political instability, frequent elections, and public debates over energy policy or military spending are not unique to Bulgaria, but they create openings for external influence. Analysts at European research institutes have pointed out that maintaining political fragmentation can be as effective as military pressure in limiting a country's strategic choices. The objective is not necessarily to force a policy reversal, but to slow decision-making and weaken consensus. From Moscow's perspective, NATO's expanding footprint around the Black Sea is not just about ships or aircraft. It represents a long-term shift in how the region is governed and connected. Stronger ties between Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey, and wider European institutions reduce Russia's ability to shape outcomes quietly. They replace bilateral pressure with multilateral frameworks, where leverage is diluted and responses are harder to isolate. What makes this ripple effect significant is its durability. Military deployments can rotate. Governments can change, but infrastructure, legal frameworks, and regional integration tend to outlast individual crises. Each new cable, corridor, or cooperative mechanism adds another layer that makes reversal more costly and less likely. For Bulgaria, this means its importance in the Black Sea is growing even when it appears to be acting cautiously. By embedding itself in economic, digital, and political networks that extend beyond the region, Sofia becomes harder to sideline and harder to pressure without triggering broader consequences. This is the deeper shift Russia has to contend with, not a dramatic challenge, but a gradual tightening of the strategic environment. Influence that once flowed easily across the Black Sea now encounters more friction, more transparency, and more collective response, and in geopolitics, friction changes behavior. And political influence over smaller states, and a geopolitical buffer zone where Western alliances would hesitate before projecting substantial force. Bulgaria's evolving role erodes those assumptions by diversifying energy sources, bolstering defense capabilities, deepening cooperation with NATO allies, and participating in regional security mechanisms. Sofia is reducing the avenues Russia once used to apply pressure without overt escalation. Each incremental strategic shift, from defense agreements to industrial partnerships, shrinks the ambiguity Russia historically relied on to shape regional dynamics. In practical terms, this means Russia must allocate more attention, resources, and planning to counterbalance not just Ukrainian resistance, but a broader network of European states that are aligning their security postures in ways that limit Moscow's freedom of action. This is why Bulgaria, for all its size, matters, not because it threatens Russia, but because it limits Russia's ability to dominate the Black Sea without consequence, and in modern strategic competition, limitation often matters as much as strength. In the Black Sea of 2025, Bulgaria is becoming a problem for Russia not through confrontation, but through strategic evolution, a transformation that reflects broader shifts in European security and alters the calculus of regional power. That's the real story.